After making many videos about the importance of free speech and why society is so divided today, I thought it would be a great idea to comment on a real discussion so we can see what good and bad conversation looks like in real life. So let's take a look at one of the most popular videos from one of the most controversial media personalities, Charlie Kirk. Before we even begin watching the video, there is already an issue: the title. In all of Kirk's content, he antagonizes his opponents and brews controversy to incentivize people to click on the video. This is problematic because as more content is advertised as divisive, heated, and insulting, society will begin viewing this as the norm of conversation. Instead, titles can be equally intriguing by presenting an insightful question or a thought-provoking statement.
Okay, so one thing I want to start off with is, why does your opinion trump over any other people's opinion?
Right, so do you believe that there is a truth out there?
Everything is subjective, but there is a right or wrong morally, especially when you're in a cultured society that is based off a set of standards and norms that we act on and we act as.
So everything is subjective. So is it objectively true you and I are having a conversation right now?
Yes.
So that's not subjective then. So not everything is subjective.
So why do you believe morals?
Right, so something is objective.
Yes, but why do you believe your subjective opinion
get
trumps
there.
over other people's opinion?
Well, let me ask you another question. I'll tell you, I will answer.
Please don't interrupt me. Let me finish my sentence. I do not want to hear it. You think that your opinion is over other people's opinions. You think you were right subjectively.
Okay.
What is right or wrong?
Okay, is murder wrong?
Yes, of course.
Well, then abortion should be
Not in
illegal.
every case.
Answer to question.
What constitutes a human? What is a human?
Deoxyribonucleic acid and conception.
But to me, a
formula.
human would be someone with a consciousness who is alive in this world.
Well,
To
guess
you,
what? You're wrong. So
but
that's
no,
fine.
you're wrong because I think that's right and you think that's
Prove
right.
me. Prove it wrong.
So this is where we encounter the first issue in this video. Here, both participants are already interrupting each other with a clear intention to not listen to each other's complete answers. Kirk then asserts that his opinion is right, despite the question being open-ended. This is not a model for how discussion across divides is supposed to unfold. There cannot be anything fruitful taken away from this conversation when it becomes a ping-pong match of who's right or wrong. Rather, they should give each other ample time to present their case first, and then begin refuting each other's arguments or adjusting their stances if they are convinced.
Let me ask you a question. What can you do, or what can I do that you can't do? What law?
Explain how
Affirmative action is lowering of test standards and quota for a quota.
You're an idiot.
No, it's not. It's the way it works.
I'm gonna tell you how it works.
Yeah, it's the way it works. I'm not going to entertain fallacies. Tell me,
You
why?
entertain me because I.
Just let him
Why-
talk. We have to hear your fallacy.
Why does skin color matter?
This student interjects the conversation with no intention of letting Kirk continue, and then calls him an idiot. Throughout this interaction, there is no constructive conversation because they are constantly talking over each other. Kirk then refuses to further engage in the conversation because he doesn't, quote, entertain fallacies. Now, I want to take a quick pause to comment on the reason why these terrible discussions happen. This video demonstrates the recurring problem that often plagues all heated debates. People are in love with hearing themselves talk. The premise of a discussion is to discover other views and engage with them. This cannot be achieved if you are always the one talking. If you think someone has gotten the facts of a subject entirely wrong, as Kirk thinks here, you can change that through discussion instead of shunning them. First, let them explain why they believe in what they believe, even if it is not factual. Next, directly engage with their points to try and make them understand why your stance makes sense.
Let him talk. Well, don't
I
call him an idiot.
believe skin color matters because of the society
He's not
we
being
are
respectful.
in.
Do you know how
And I
this
guess
shit
it
works?
goes
It's
into
called
critical
right.
race theory.
Removing
Yes,
right
it is.
is
Because of the
disrespectful.
society we have
I'll
lived
do it
in,
too.
race
I'll
is
do
a
it too.
factor. If from the beginning of time race wasn't a factor, and there was never anybody who was oppressed because of their race, I feel like it would not play a part in anything that we do. But because literally less.
Oh, it's just Charlie.
They were interrupting you. I was.
A student begins presenting their stance, and Kirk lets them speak with no interruptions. After 5 minutes of what discussion should not look like, It is incredibly refreshing that there is proper conversation across divides at least once in this video. Finally, Kirk does not have the intention to listen to himself speak, and the student has the intention of expressing their opinion rather than focusing on intimidating or insulting Kirk. Unfortunately, it is cut short because of a group of students on the right interrupting her by loudly playing music and singing along, but nonetheless, it was a great interaction.
Do you believe on black crime?
Do I believe in black on black crime?
Yeah.
It's abundant.
Explain, please.
Yeah, it's the number one cause of death in many black communities. I'm just being honest.
He is right. Okay.
Once again, a good example of respectful conversation without anyone antagonizing each other or their intentions. One thing I want to highlight is what the student to the left of the person who asked the question does. They intervene to affirm that what Kirk is saying is correct, despite disagreeing drastically for most of the video beforehand. They demonstrate the crucial ability to separate the person from their stance. Even though they disagree on certain aspects, they don't feel like it hurts their ego or damages their reputation to agree with other things that he says.
So back to our previous argument that was interrupted. So in the sense of what, like I was saying, you don't believe like because of the history and because races have been oppressed, you don't believe like race plays a part in things, and you don't believe like.
No, that's not true. No. So, do you know who Thomas Sowell is? You know who Thomas Sowell is?
No.
I really encourage you to look. Thomas Sowell's great. He's one of the best black economists of the 20th century. Grew up in Harlem, and he's done the best research in the 1940s, 1950s, and 60s black community. And essentially, his argument is that black America was experiencing a renaissance in the 50s and 60s, despite discrimination. Yes. Now, the one part that I would agree with.
But, however, it's not the black community as a whole, it's Harlem's black community.
There's Chicago too, but let's pretend you're right, okay? The one argument that I would agree with, and I'm against systemic racism arguments, the one that I would say, you know what, there was something very wrong is when Democrat Lyndon Baines Johnson came in and destroyed the black nuclear family. If there was one part where I could say, you know what, that was unjust and that has to be undone, it's when Lyndon Baines Johnson went in through the Great Society program with the intent to destroy the black nuclear family.
Okay. So in that sense, do you believe the war on drugs also played a part? Or
Not
do you not
really.
believe in the war on drugs?
Well, look, I believe we should be very harsh on drugs, but I think I would give some merit to the argument of some government agencies peddling cocaine in the inner cities. There is evidence to show that. I'm not going to debate it. Do I think it has so for example, like there's one number that I'm fascinated with, right? Single motherhood in the black community was about 28% in 1945, okay? Now it's around 65 to 70%. Why? Are we more racist than we were in 1945?
No.
Okay, so then what happened?
The war on drugs.
Okay, fair enough.
The war on drugs. The demolishing the nuclear family in a sense.
Right,
And
we
I
agree.
believe due to the history that's happened, racism is still very prevalent in a lot of this a lot of the systems that are in America, correct?
Yeah. So no, of course not. But I was actually caught by your shirt. You know, Malcolm X was super pro-life.
Yes.
I think Malcolm X could teach a lot of the black movement something, because it more so than Martin Luther King, because Malcolm X, I'm getting there. Malcolm X, some people don't describe him correctly as being violent, right? That was a very small part of his literature. He was very big on trying to get black America to succeed despite the white liberal.
Yes.
And
not the white liberal.
He did say white liberal. Oh, you go look up the Malcolm X white liberal quote. And so I think that's interesting. Just think about it. Go look up Malcolm X warned against white liberals owning black America for their own gain, which is exactly what BLM is.
Okay, so back to my initial point. Back to my initial point. You don't believe that my truth can be different than yours, specifically based on race.
Experiences can be different, but there is always a truth. I'll give you an example. We all might have 5 different opinions of a car crash, right? But eventually a truth will be revealed of what really happened. Does that make sense?
So you believe that your truth is the truth that you have found yourself is the ultimate truth.
I would hope so. Yeah. And I'm willing to learn.
And then make America great again.
Otherwise, I think Malcolm X could teach us a lot right now.
This clip holds a good example of how to discuss back and forth. Both Kirk and the student give each other time to finish. None of them are eager to start speaking before that. This interaction shows the potential to have constructive conversations with individuals who hold drastically different and conflicting views.
Yes.
What do you think about like the 1960s and 70s militarization of the police? The shift in the police?
Yeah, I mean, I'm generally very pro-police. What about the military? I mean, the
What-
question is what came first, and I honestly don't know the answer. Was it the rise in crime, or was it the
Well,
police that went into the
If
inner
you knew what
community?
you were talking about, you would know the answer.
Here, Kirk acknowledges that he does not know the answer to a question, and the student proceeds to throw an insult at him. This is an example of the unnecessary antagonization and animosity that happens way too often during conversations across divides. Instead of throwing an insult, further discussion could be made to understand or try and recall the answer to the question both are asking. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Charlie Kirk's fame is built upon these heated, disrespectful, and counterproductive conversations. However, there are still flashes of respectful and good faith conversation, which should give us a lot of hope. Even in the worst speech climates in the status quo, we still occasionally produce great discussions. All we need to do is ensure we work to make it more of a common occurrence.